There's a kind of love that doesn't begin with declarations. It doesn't arrive wrapped in clarity or spoken in confident words. Instead, it grows in silence, slowly, quietly, sometimes even unnoticed by the very person who holds it. He doesn't always realize what's unfolding within him. He may laugh with you, listen deeply, feel a strange pull toward you, and yet still say nothing. But there is a language the soul speaks before the mind understands. This is the realm we're entering, a space where a single look, a strange hesitation, or a protective gesture reveals more than any confession ever could. Comment: I choose to see the invisible if you believe this truth. To understand a love that hasn't yet reached the surface of his awareness, we must step into the depths of the unconscious. Carl Jung, the great explorer of the psyche, reminded us that much of what moves us exists far beneath the surface, hidden in the parts of ourselves we've forgotten, denied, or never truly known. One of his most important concepts is projection, where we unknowingly place parts of ourselves, especially the disowned ones, onto others. When a man appears conflicted, drawn to you deeply yet hesitant to label it, it could be because he's projecting parts of his inner world onto you, his vulnerability, his longing for connection, his own anima, still waiting to be accepted. Jung taught us that the shadow, those repressed or ignored aspects of our psyche, often holds the keys to our emotional truth. In many men, the shadow holds the parts they were taught to hide: tenderness, dependence, the ache to be held and known. When a man has not made peace with these parts, his feelings come out sideways. He may show up with acts of service, intense eye contact, or moments of silence that feel heavy with unspoken depth. He may say he's unsure, but his body lingers near yours. The contradiction isn't manipulation, it's evidence of an internal divide. Individuation, the process of becoming whole that Jung described, begins when we start to notice these unconscious forces trying to break through. When you sense that one unexplainable moment, that slight possessiveness, that involuntary smile, that tension when you speak of another man, you're witnessing the soul speaking ahead of the mind. He may not know what he feels, but something within him does, and if you can recognize that without demanding clarity before he's ready, you become not just a romantic presence, but a mirror for his own awakening. There are moments when silence becomes a confession. When a man who says nothing reveals everything. You may find him staring when he thinks you're not looking, his posture softening around you, his presence subtly shifting when you speak of leaving. These are not coincidences, they are unconscious signals. According to Jung, the unconscious mind is not passive. It acts, expresses, even betrays the truth the conscious mind cannot admit. When a man loves but has not realized it, his unconscious leaks that love through small actions. The way he listens more carefully to your voice, the way he suddenly becomes protective, or the tension he feels when you create distance. These contradictions are not confusion, they are the psyche reaching out for what the ego still fears. The human psyche is layered, and love often begins in the deepest part of it, before reason, before awareness. This is why he may resist the feeling even as he lives inside it. It's why he can pull away right after sharing an intimate moment, or why he seems emotionally lost after a deep conversation with you. He is caught in the sacred tug-of-war between what he unconsciously feels and what he is consciously ready to handle. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When he behaves in ways even he doesn't understand, when he cares but denies, stays close but avoids words, that is the unconscious steering the wheel of his heart. This is also the realm of dreams, slips of the tongue, spontaneous reactions. He may not tell you what he feels, but you'll hear it in the tone of his voice when he says your name. You'll feel it when his eyes stay on you longer than necessary. The unconscious doesn't wait for permission to love. It simply begins. And in men especially, where emotional expression is often discouraged or trained out of them, love first awakens, not in thought, but in instinct. A man may deny his feelings out loud, but his nervous system betrays him. He wants to be near you, even when there's no logical reason. That's not indecision. That's love trying to rise through unfamiliar soil. In this space, you must learn to listen with more than your ears. You must notice the pauses, the contradictions, the wordless gestures that carry the weight of emotion. This doesn't mean you must interpret every moment romantically. It means you attune yourself to the depth beneath appearances. Jungian psychology teaches that we're often drawn to people who awaken parts of ourselves we have not yet fully met, and when he is drawn to you in a way that unsettles him, it's because you mirror something in him that is both deeply desired and profoundly feared. And in that mirror, love begins to take form, quietly, rebelliously, inevitably. In the male psyche, love is often tangled with fear. Not because the love is false, but because it stirs the parts of him that have never been seen, never been safe, never been allowed to live. The more deeply he feels, the more threatened his ego becomes. The unconscious doesn't move in straight lines. It whispers, it trembles, it resists. So when he begins to feel something real, something sacred, he may unconsciously try to suppress it. He may pull away just as the connection deepens. He may provoke tension or retreat emotionally, not out of cruelty but because part of him is afraid of the intimacy he craves most. This is the paradox of a man's shadow. It guards his heart even while it longs to give it away. Jung taught that the shadow holds everything a person has disowned in themselves. For many men that includes vulnerability, emotional surrender, and the longing to be known without performance. So, when a woman sees him, not just his image, but his essence, it can feel terrifying. She touches the part of him he has spent years protecting. And if he hasn't yet integrated those hidden emotional truths, his love will come out not as clarity, but contradiction. One day he'll seem present and engaged, the next distant and unreadable. These are not signs of deception, but signs of awakening. And awakening is never a linear path. Love, that emerges from the unconscious, doesn't always come wrapped in comfort. It often stirs everything that was dormant, old wounds, hidden desires, buried fears. That's why he might seem overwhelmed by the connection, as if it's too much, too fast, too consuming. In truth, the love isn't the problem. What it triggers inside him is, he is meeting parts of himself he didn't know existed. And if he's still identifying with a self-image that avoids emotion or prioritizes control, then loving you feels like losing that image. But in that disintegration, something greater is trying to be born, something more whole, something more real. So, when he withdraws right after growing close, when he grows cold after being warm, recognize this not as rejection, but as inner conflict. You are not imagining the love, he's feeling it. But he may not yet have the psychological freedom to embrace it. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, and that includes accepting the part that loves fully, irrationally, vulnerably. When you see his confusion, remember, it's not about you. It's about the part of him waking up. And that awakening, though painful, is the first sign of a love that will one day rise into the light. There is something sacred that happens when a woman becomes the mirror of a man's anima, the inner feminine archetype that lives within him. This concept, as Jung described, is not about external femininity, but about the emotional, intuitive, and receptive aspects of the psyche. When he meets you and feels an intense, almost inexplicable connection, he may be encountering this archetype for the first time. You don't just appeal to him, you awaken him. And that awakening doesn't feel like falling in love in the traditional sense. It feels like remembering something he never consciously knew. You stir something ancient in his soul, something that whispers, "This is who you really are." And yet, that stirring can be terrifying, because if he hasn't made peace with his anima, his capacity to feel deeply, to receive love, to surrender his armor, then your presence becomes both magnetic and threatening. He may not understand why he's drawn to you, why your absence hurts more than logic allows, or why your joy moves him to silence. This confusion isn't a lack of love, it's evidence of projection. You've become the symbolic mirror of what he yearns for within himself. You reflect back the emotional dimension he has not yet embraced. And in this sacred mirroring, the most vulnerable love story begins, not between two people, but between a man and his own soul. This is why his behavior may seem inconsistent. One moment he reaches for you, the next he distances himself. He is not trying to play games. He is trying to protect himself from his own emotional eruption. Because to truly love you, he would have to first love the part of himself you reflect. And if that part has long been buried beneath shame, social expectation or fear, then he's not just learning how to love you, he's learning how to feel at all. This is the unconscious in motion. Love begins to rise through the cracks, breaking through old emotional walls, and while it may feel messy, uncertain, even painful at times, it is profoundly real. So when he stumbles through his feelings, unsure and unready to name them, know that his soul is waking up, and you are witnessing that awakening. You are not imagining the energy, the connection, the invisible pull. You are standing at the edge of his transformation. But this path isn't about rushing him toward clarity. It's about honoring the slow and sacred process of becoming whole. When he loves you more than he realizes, you don't need loud confessions. The truth is already there in his gaze, in his hesitation, in the strange sense that something powerful is trying to emerge through his silence. The soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in patterns, in subtle emotional waves that repeat until we finally listen. If he loves you more than he realizes, you'll notice it in those unexplainable consistencies, how he always seems to show up when you're struggling, how his energy shifts when you talk about someone new, how he remembers things you said once in passing, as if part of him is always tuned into your world. These aren't just habits, they're unconscious loyalties. He may not have named it as love, but something inside him already has. His psyche is reaching out before his mind catches up. Jung believed that our outer relationships are often mirrors of our inner worlds, and when a man keeps circling you emotionally, drawn in, retreating, returning again, it's often because your presence is calling forth something unresolved within him. You are not just someone he likes, you are someone his unconscious recognizes. That's why he can't quite let go. That's why even in moments of silence or distance, he remains energetically present. What you're feeling isn't one-sided, it's just not yet fully conscious on his end. And this gap between feeling and understanding is where many deep love stories begin. But this kind of love asks for patience. Because before he can love you clearly, he must first navigate the inner chaos you've awakened. His shadows are stirred, his heart is no longer numb, and that's not easy for someone who's lived guarded for so long. He may wrestle with denial, convince himself he's not ready, or push you away in moments of emotional overload. But his avoidance doesn't erase the connection, it confirms its power. He is not rejecting you. He is facing the flood of his own unprocessed truth. And when a man is forced to meet his deeper self through love, the journey is never smooth, but it is always sacred. So don't doubt the energy you feel. Don't silence your own intuition. When he acts out of character around you, when his behavior contradicts his words, you're witnessing the birth of awareness. His unconscious is speaking loud and clear, even if he hasn't yet found the language. And that one sign, the one moment where his actions reveal what he hasn't dared to say, will be enough to show you the love is real. It may be unspoken, it may be confused, but it is unfolding, and if you honor the process, you might just witness it grow into something conscious, lasting, and whole. Love is not always a revelation. Sometimes it's a quiet awakening, a slow realization that blooms from the inside out. For a man who hasn't yet understood the depth of his feelings, love doesn't arrive as lightning. It arrives in confusion, in restlessness, in the unbearable gravity of your presence, and it shows itself not in declarations, but in contradiction. He may tell you he's not ready, but still holds space for you in his life. He may say he doesn't know what he feels, but struggle to watch you love someone else. These contradictions aren't lies. They are the early language of an unconscious heart trying to become conscious. Jung reminded us that the process of becoming whole is rarely linear. It's a path of spirals forward, backward, inward. When a man is undergoing this emotional evolution, you'll feel it. His gaze will deepen before his words do. His care will intensify before his intentions are clear. He may not yet call it love, but his soul already has, and your ability to see it without demanding it, to feel it without forcing it, becomes a mirror that helps him see himself. You're not waiting for him to change, you're witnessing him unfold. And in that unfolding, something beautiful happens. Not only does he begin to see you more clearly, he begins to see himself. That's what makes this kind of love different. It doesn't just bind two people together, it awakens the sleeping parts of the soul. Your presence becomes a catalyst, your compassion, a bridge, your patience, an anchor. He begins to realize that what he feels around you isn't just attraction, it's truth. A truth so powerful, it challenges every wall he's built to stay safe. And as those walls crumble, what remains is raw, real, and finally, ready to love out loud. So if you see that one sign, the unconscious act of love he doesn't even realize he's doing, know that something profound is happening. He's not ignoring what's real. He's becoming ready for it. You didn't imagine the love. You felt it before he could name it. And now, as he grows into the truth, you've already met it with your heart. That is the beginning of conscious love, born in silence, seen through the soul, and destined to rise into the light. If you've made it this far, drop a 100 in the comments. It shows you are part of the 1% that's improving every single day.